Alright, welcome back to Dominion. So this is the final result of our last-ditch effort against Pangea. And skipping to the very end, we were not successful. Let's see, a messenger arrived from Averni. Yep, it would appear Pangea is about to claim the throne of Bones. Our forces were one turn too late to stop him, the Druid High Council. Yeah, one turn too late. That's kind of, I think, where all of us are. Messengers arrived from Pangea. Y'all can still hang out in my grove, man. Let's see. Research and conjuration is completed. Yeah. That's pointless. We'll skip kind of the pointless ones a little bit. I don't know. It was like out of habit that I clicked that. Dwarf Comic, the Minotaur Lord, has claimed the Throne of Bones in the name of the Dancer. And here you get to actually kind of see the order of how things go. So this is where I was a little bit confused in the manual, and where I was hoping but not expecting that we might be able to pull this off, even though it does turn out we were too late. So Ascension happens now. Like, these messages occur basically in the same order as things resolve in the game. It's like this happened first, this happened second, and therefore the messages occur in the same order. This comes first, this comes second, etc. In the case of messages, I mean, it's tantamount to simultaneous. But anyway, so yeah, you claim thrones first. I mean, first is research, then you claim thrones, then we cast some spells, we search for sites, and then battles happen. And then here at the end, we see that, rejoice, the true God has ascended. I don't know, though. Maybe we know what's going to be the result of this battle here, if we watch it. Or maybe, well, I know, because if we just look real quick, we can see that it's just some weak province defense. So there was no hidden army here getting ready to move on Dragonport. And frankly, the longer that Pangea put off attacking Dragonport, well, the more I was put back into a position where I could defend it. And the more I was less inclined to... the more I was inclined to really put resources into defending it. By that, I mean, that's why I think I commented on that. But for example, that's why I recruited that Furbolg warrior. I was like, well, he can do some stuff, and then he can go over there and help fortify that. Which I thought, if we could get past this turn, that's what I was going to have to do. Is I was going to have to get ready to, even though it was just a simple palisades, I was going to have to do what I could to kind of get it bolstered up to defend from Pangea, and then, well, Averni might have changed their mind too and come up after it as well, but I was going to have to hang on to that. That was going to have to be part of the plan if I was going to try to make a move again. But I'm getting ahead of myself. There was a battle in the Rusty Badlands. I guess what I'm trying to say is that the longer that stayed there, the less and less likely there was, in my mind, to be a strong army here. And as it turned out, there wasn't. Okay, there was a battle in the Rusty Badlands. Now this one is an unfortunate one, for different reasons. The main reason being that we are not going to be able to get through all of this. And I wish, the other thing too, is I wish I'd had a chance to implement the attack closest instead of attack rear. And here we'll see again, the Harpies went first, they engaged my Valkyries, and so these Valkyries are going to stay here now and attack the Black Harpies because they're already engaged, while the rest of these guys jump into the back and then get stuck here. The good thing is, yeah, okay, they're going to attack the commanders, but not the right ones, and these guys are now behind. And really what would have been better is if it had been attack closest, we would have wiped out the Harpies immediately, then we'd be moving on and either taking on these Centaurs or these Satyrs, and these I believe are province defense. And we could kill these, and these guys don't have that great a morale. Oh, they have terrible morale, so they would have routed instantly. Then we would have moved on to the Revelers, I want to say. Oh, even the Satyrs, even worse morale. So, like, I don't know, we might have been able to have actually won this. Because look at his white scent. Well, I guess they're engaged. Who knows when these guys would have pulled up, but they alone would not have been enough. And actually, I think they're only even out here because I think he might have been having them preach for some reason. No, I don't know, actually. I don't know why they're out here with the province defense. And there might have actually been more inside the fortress that just aren't here. So who knows? But these are named commanders, though, right? And they are messing me up. Like they're giving me the tangle vines, which is not good. But yeah, unfortunately, this just isn't going to work out. And then the other thing too is the more of the army that you rout, I think it has an effect on the morale of the remaining troops as well. So yeah, this just kind of worked out in the worst possible way. Just even with the amount of Valkyries I had, like. And the other thing that's makes it kind of worse too is that I could only send my Valkyries because, you know, as Maverny said, being a turn too late. Yeah, it was a turn too late. I couldn't bring in my main army up yet. So anyway, we'll go through and watch the rest of this. But yeah, my Valkyries are getting swarmed here, and we're not killing the white centaurs fast enough. There's been some debate, because I'm recording this now, after the rest of us have had some time to kind of talk about the resolution of the battles in the game, and me and Dwarf Comic have had some debate about how strong were his white centaurs and who should have been more afraid of who, because I wouldn't have known this, but he was a bit spooked, I think, by my 30 Valkyries melting his 10 centaur squads, and so I think, because of those good engagements I had, I think I had like 2, but because of those successful engagements, I think he overestimated my strength, but it didn't stop him from doing the raid that came after Dragonport, which didn't work out very well for me. Again, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. I'll talk about that in a bit. But as we can see here, it's not like we're not taking these centaurs down that quickly. See what I mean? All of these guys, I think, are attacking this corner, but we're not making a lot of progress. Like ideally, these guys would kill this square. These 3 squares would kill this square, like in one go, and we aren't. Like we've been here forever, and we're still not killing them. Fatigue is fine. Their fatigue is worse, but yeah. But what's happening now is we're going to start routing. How's my commanders doing? They're still just hanging out. I think actually it's my commanders who may route first. Morale 30 on Eden. Morale 15. Okay. Morale 12 on the Valkyries. Okay. Yeah, see, look how... Oh, it's absurd. Absurd. So, this is kind of the first big Valkyrie versus Centaur fight, even though there's only a handful of the white centaurs, and now we flee. But I do not feel any more convinced now than I was before that we were going to have much luck in a pitched battle with the white centaurs. I think this one, like I said, if I'd done it different, if I'd done attack closest, it would have been a closer battle. But let's check it out. See, like, we lost all those Valkyries, and what did we kill? Like, white centaur. Well, we killed 4 out of... We killed 4 of them. I guess we kind of did kill a lot, but not fast enough. Nowhere near fast enough. So, yeah, this was just a little tiny raiding party that he left behind for whatever reason. One unit was cured of their disease. That would be Gordon Overkill, finally. And then just patrolled. That's nothing. Finally, we got a hero. And a Hangadrotning. That would have been if it's related to a Hangedrot, then that would have been nice. And then Rejoice, a True God Ascended. Now here's where I have a question, which is if, for example, I had won in the Rusty Badlands, or if, let's go ahead and take a look at the map. Because if you see here, like, if Daz, when he says he's one turn too late, does that mean he's one turn too late to attack here? Like, did he just move his army to here now? I'll have to find out when I watch his videos. I haven't gotten that far into the videos. Not that far as in, like, I haven't gotten to this point now in the videos. And then here, did Sabouts attack this? And I assume Sabouts attacked this and failed. But what would have happened if one of the three of us had managed to take one of these provinces, which is what I was hoping. I mean, I did get Maverny to, like, I made it pretty starkly clear, I think, that they had to put everything into this or it wasn't going to work. Even though I did end up attacking as well, my hope in this game was, at the end, that after telling them that I kind of used the ceasefire I had with Pangaea as leverage, and the fact that I wasn't going to break that promise, I kind of used that actually as leverage to tell them, to kind of get them to get off their butts and do something, you know, like, really hurry up and get down here. You know, I didn't want them to hang back at all. Like, I didn't want Daz to be like, well, I'll leave an army up here just in case. Well, actually, and that's the other thing that's unfortunate about that, being one turn behind. And that's the thing that, like, it was a failure on my part diplomatically, is me and Daz fought here a precious few too many turns. So we had the initial fight here, or this was a key point in the game, I think, for me, is the turn when I came in here and attacked Dragonport. I still think, you know, I sent one message the same turn that I did that to Daz, being like, okay, you know, like, we can talk. And then the same turn that I attacked, he sent me back a message that said basically no. So I don't really regret that. I don't feel like I misread that up to that point. Like, I think Daz was determined to attack here, regardless of what I tried to do, and that I really did feel forced to address this front of the battlefield. And it was a difference between picking an army up here that I felt, even if I won, I wouldn't be able to defend myself from the second attack, and then that would give Maverny free reign. And I had a bit of a, like I said before, I think I had a bit of a grudge with Maverny about this whole situation up here, mainly though, I felt like the Dragonport army was an army that I could beat, and beat soundly, but I didn't beat it soundly. I lost at least 40%. I didn't lose quite 50%, but I lost at least around 40%. 34 out of 80 Valkyries, to be concrete. And at that point, it was bad news. Like, if I wasn't confident that 80 Valkyries could take on the forces that Pangaea had arrayed at the High Throne, I was certainly not confident after I lost 34 of them that I was going to be able to do it. And so, yeah, but after I was committed down here, I was just going to make sure that I was going to have to beat back somebody's army, because I was getting taken apart by both Maverny and Pangaea. And Pangaea had other things to do, namely claiming thrones, and so he went about doing that. But the problem is after Dragonport, me and Daz still spent a couple turns fighting up here, and one was I didn't trust him at all. Even so, though, I needed these provinces for money, so I don't quite... it sucks. If we'd started emailing sooner, then... Like, he sent me an email after I'd already committed my turn, and, you know, I told him I felt like I was facing off getting destroyed. I was facing the prospect of being destroyed completely by Pangea. And so I played the victim card pretty hard on him. And, you know, I also had these turns that, you know, his last message to me after Dragonport was that he was sending his army north. And it was just kind of a... that was another moment where I was like, well, all right, he's committed. I can't... I've destroyed one army, and he still is determined to bring the next one up. But thank God he stopped. That he contacted me, and we sorted it out. But the problem is, how many turns was he bringing that main army up here before we reached our official peace agreement? And so yeah. Anyway, I'm glad that it didn't come to that. I'm glad that it didn't turn into a thing where, you know, I was just... Because, man, for a bit there, it felt like I was going to have to choose where to waste my army, in a way. Like, and I certainly was going to get more bang for my buck fighting back Merverni than fighting back Pangea. We've been talking about this a lot over email right now, because we're all watching each other's videos and seeing it from each other's perspectives. And watching it from Daz's perspective, I can see that, like, he was much more willing to talk, I think, than I had assumed from his earlier messages. His messages to me, all while he was waltzing through my lands, I was just like, there's no way I can, like, I just felt like I cannot reason with this person. Not Daz personally, just like, I felt like his strategy was determined to destroy me, and yeah, that the only way I could do it is if I ended the war on this front, and I wasn't able to that soundly or that quickly, and have enough troops left over for Pangea. And then, on top of that, well, here's what I was hoping, I guess, in hindsight, trying to dissect everything, is we also, at the same time as Dragonport, we had the fight here, and I was figuring one of two things would happen. He would either march all of his centaurs in one force, which would have been what, I think there was 55 up here, but he was either going to keep them all together and just march on my capital, or he was going to do what he ended up doing, which is split them apart and just take my provinces down. And so I made that one trap up here, and what I really wanted that trap to do was to kill the entire force that he sent. Like, if he split it up, I wanted to kill that whole force, and that would have reduced his army by 20 to 25% if he did it the way I thought he would, and I didn't. I did repel him, and that's why he had centaurs left over here, and but I wasn't able to kill it, and I wasn't able to kill his commander, which is actually a little bit more important to me. And in the end, gold cost wise, you know, it cost me some money to put 20 defense up here, which was still a good return investment as far as having just chaff units in the battle. But, you know, I lost, what, 7 out of 10 Valkyries, who shouldn't have really been there in the first place. I'm not sure that they really helped the battle at all, and all it did was I lost them and lost money, and contributed to the 34 Valkyries that I lost down here. So yeah, that trap didn't work. And then I didn't feel like Pangea was going to fall for that again. So, yeah. That's the big key thing, though, is that me and Daz fought too long up here. I have to, again, I'm going to be interested to check his video and see if he was bluffing or not when he sent me that message saying that he was marching north. But regardless, he didn't get here in time. Regardless of how that played out. I know he was asking me, I figured that out too. I got to the part of his videos where he was talking about his plan to have me come through here with my Valkyries so he had an excuse to come down. And it didn't quite make sense to me the first time when we were doing it, when we were talking about it in real time. At the same time, my mind was a bit distracted too, so I get what his plan was now, that it would hide what he was doing from Pangea, but And here's where I kind of lied to him a little bit. I told him it wasn't. It was one of those things where it was like maybe technically not a lie, in that I told him that Pangaea had to know for sure that he was going to move, that Maverny was going to move against him. So there was no point in me splitting my forces and bringing down, a part of my army when I needed all hands on deck to bring a part of my army to come down through here and raid his lands. I mean, if I was going to raid anybody, I should be raiding Pangaea. And I say that's technically true because of the way I think I phrased it, which is like, Pangaea has to know that you're going to move against him, which is like, it wasn't like Dwarf Comic told me that, yes, I know that I know that Maverny is moving against me now, or something like that. But it was at that stage of the game where it was like, the writing's on the wall for Pangaea as well, right? That he knows now, like, there's no, we don't need excuses. We don't need excuses, and Pangaea knows now that everybody is his enemy. And so that's why I gave Daz a bit of the cold shoulder on that suggestion. But it was an interesting plan. It was an interesting idea, and what I hadn't thought of at the time, which is the reason I wanted to talk about it now, is Daz was talking about having spies throughout his empire from Pangaea. And I don't know if that's true or not, because again, I haven't gotten to that point in the videos with Dwarf Comic either, but it's something I hadn't even thought about with my provinces, was just how many of those spies did Pangaea have around. I know he had spies around here, because again, I got to that point in his videos as well. Like, I know he had spies around here to watch our battles. Although I don't think he saw this one actually at Dragonport. But yeah, anyway. I was also, though, legitimately discouraged after that battle with Dragonport, because, man, my hope was, again, crush this army of Daz's, and I felt I had to before he reunited it. I knew he had to have another army building up down here, and I don't yet know how much of that army there was. I know vaguely from us talking on email that he'd prepared an army and was sending it south, but I don't know, I felt like I was in a position here where also, if I let Maverny take Dragonport, and yeah, if I let Maverny take Dragonport, I was never going to get it back. And like I said, I did not feel like Daz deserved it for invading my territory the way he did. Not that I felt like Pangaea deserved this one either, but I think in the end, Daz didn't know how down and out I was. That's one thing we've been talking about too, and that's one bit of metagaming I'll do now as well, although we'll talk about it in the podcast, I'm sure. But I did not pick, I think, the right faction for me. And I could tell that I was going to have some troubles early on when people were saying that, oh, Helheim is like the best pick for this map, or for this game. I was like, uh-oh. Because I'm not that's the problem when you pick OP nations, I think, is you also, or I don't know if it's OP, but I am not a good enough player. I was not a good enough player. That's like the best I can say, if not still a good enough player to take advantage of all the strengths that Helheim had. I did not get a chance to do the raid attack against, because that's what would have happened. I would have, either Pangaea was going to raid attack me, or I was going to raid attack them, and it just worked out because of my stumbling out of the gate, that Pangaea got the initiative on me. But that is not a gameplay style that I had done before, and a lot of people were very helpful trying to, get me introduced to that style. But it was not the gameplay style I had anticipated when I made my pick. I just wanted to have the flying squadrons, because I like having those kind of troops, that I like having high mobility troops, and that was the main thing about the Valkyries and the Dis. And in hindsight, a better pick for me for this map would have been Arkosfele, I think that's how you pronounce it, with the winged commanders and the winged sacred units, because that would have fit the style of gameplay I was anticipating. This game, I think, pivoted on poor diplomacy on my part, not settling this issue with Daz sooner. or both of us, not settling it with each other sooner, that, yeah, there was 2 turns there of me taking back these provinces, which is fine, I needed the provinces, but, and, you know, I was taking them also just because I was taking these just to slow down his armies, because I was thinking that he might bring his army up, and if he was kind of come back again for Dragonport, I wanted him to have to go through these provinces at least one by one to get back here, and also I needed the money. But, and that's why I took these independent provinces as well. That was a little bit of a stall, because I knew that I could take these independent provinces, see if Merverni was legit in regards to, you know, a ceasefire and/or alliance, but also get my income back up, but also not compromise a ceasefire with Dwarf Comic while his units were still in the area. I still think my initial plan in the last few episodes was sound, which was not to make a move against this fortress until after Pangaea lost some thrones, and not until I had a big enough army to protect my own holdings. So I wanted to secure this throne. One flaw in my plan that I can see now watching Sabouts' early videos is Sabouts actually had an undead army, so he could have moved into the ocean as well and taken this throne. And he just needed to have a means of getting into the ocean with a prophet or pretender, so that might have been the only advantage I would have had against him, but I don't believe that would have been a long-term problem for him. I think it's not that hard to... well, I don't know. I'll have to look at his faction again, but I believe he would have had access to enough air magic somehow, to air or water magic, to build water-breathing items to get to this throne. At the very least, he could have just knocked me off the throne with an undead army. So this plan wasn't quite as surefire as I might have thought in the past few episodes. My main problem with this plan going through the sea was that I just took too long to do it. Took too long to implement it, took too long to get to enchantment, took too long to start summoning undead units. Because even though my undead was enough to capture this province, if I had more undead more quickly, I could have built up a big enough army to just roll through here and hopefully get to the... I don't know, though. This would have been a strong... this would have been a strong army, but... who knows, maybe I could have followed it back up with and reinforced with, like, my pretender, once I gave my pretender the, air-breathing pills and the sea dogs as chafe, and along the way maybe I could have stopped and recruited some sea units as well, even though the sea units are crap. They're still, perhaps, if you, I don't know. That's getting kind of ahead, though. You know, it was a plan that I'd only just barely started to kind of put together. It was definitely not fully formed or fully matured, even in the last episode, or the episode before last. The last episode really was, we were facing the end of the game. Yeah, I'm absolutely glad. Dang, yeah, if I'd only had my armies here, we could have kicked this out, and then maybe, if this province had switched sides, because again, looking at the messages, here come the battles, and then Ascension. Then we get the check for victory. And then maybe this wouldn't have counted for victory. And then maybe we would still have a game right now. But that wasn't an optimal move for my strategy, in that if, say, everything else in the game happened the way it did, and I happened to have had Stitcher here with his army, and I'd happened to have set my Valkyries to attack closest and not attack rear, and we happened to win this battle, it still means Ermor would have lost this. Maybe, though, maybe not, though. Maybe, again, I have to watch the videos. But Ermor lost this. Merverni didn't get here in time. Merverni, though, that could have worked. Because if I was able to take this, Merverni could have then come in the next round, even though, assuming it was a logistical delay, and I'm assuming from his message that's what it meant, that I'm assuming he's saying that our forces were one turn too late to stop him. Sounds like they already got... I don't know. I don't know. I'll find out when I watch his videos and when we talk. It may have just been like his army was here and couldn't move here. Or like that he needed one more turn to move his army in here to attack. So like maybe there wasn't an attack here. Maybe there was. And then Ermor, I don't know if this was supposed to be a defense force and he had other forces here to come in, that were moving in to defend it or not. Don't know yet. Or maybe he made an attack over here. No, he couldn't have. He doesn't have any adjacency here. But the ideal situation for me at this point in the game was to have these guys do the heavy lifting for a sec. Like, have them do some heavy lifting, beat down Pangaea, and weaken themselves in the process, while I continued to build up and save my forces, and then come in and be able to roll over them. Like, and it would have to have been quick too. It'd have to be quick enough that they couldn't get their armies together against me. But it was a pretty thin chance, but it was still a chance. Anyway, we had an interesting debate again. I felt if Pangaea wanted to, if I started, for example, from here with my Valkyrie squads, instead of going after Maverni, who, remember, I was still under the impression until Daz started contacting me on email that he was going to just bring up his second army, which was probably going to be even bigger, and he could even come through this pass to save time, as well as recruit from here. He was just going to come back up again. and this time he wasn't going to probably make a mistake with the, getting ready for the Valkyries. So, like, that trick was not going to work twice. Anyway, as much as, like, surprising him with my numbers. I was just going to have to recruit more, and he could get more of his troops than I could get of my Valkyries. And, yeah, again. So, assuming I didn't do that, if I tried to go up here and start raiding Pangaea, which, in hindsight, I kind of... partly because I think I feel a little bit more comfortable with that strategy, or that tactic now, but at the time I was kind of locked into tunnel vision thinking about pitched battles rather than raiding. But if I'd come up here and started taking Pangaea's stuff with my Valkyries, whilst he marched his army down here, he had enough to just waltz right through this. Like, I would be having to send my main strength, which was my Valkyrie squads, out here. I only had, I think, 3 disc commanders to begin with after this battle. Or maybe I only had 2. Yeah, after this battle, I think I only had 2. Yeah, it was not gonna... I might have been able to have gotten a few more discs out here to help split up my forces, but it was not going to be a quick move, that's for sure. I wasn't going to be able to start raiding more than 2 provinces after Dragonport. But anyway, my point that I'm trying to get to is, if I had been him, my solution to being raided like this would have been to just go for the head of the snake. I would have just moved down here with my force from the High Throne, and hey, maybe I will try to come back here with my Valkyrie squads and take it, but you know what? He's got guys in here now. He's recruiting troops in here. So, fine. This is actually more important, because once he gets his army here and is sieging my castle, well, I'm losing a lot of income for one thing. For another, I'm going to have to stop calling my god, because my god shows up while he's sieging me. My god's going to YOLO and die. And so that would have messed with... Well, that was just kind of a discouraging thing. Maybe it wouldn't have been a big deal to just stop calling my god. But, my feeling was just that he would win in a war of attrition. I could raid the heck out of his lands, but he's still got these fortresses that I can't do anything about with my Valkyries, and from which he can put out units. So he's got units coming from here and here, and unless I could go back and take this, he'll have him coming out from here. He's just going to win by attrition. I can't make new Valkyries. If that's, again, assuming that he just marches his army here and sieges my castle. I can't make new Valkyries. I can't make new elite troops. I can maybe squeeze out some infantry from here, but As we've seen, this fortress was not that high in resources, and especially since, if I went straight to raiding from here, I wouldn't even have these 2 provinces under my control. So it was interesting debate there, but I still think, given what Dwarf Comic did do after this, raiding absolutely would have been the right thing to do, because he didn't come down on here. But again, I think one of the reasons in my mind at the time that he didn't come down here was because I begged him not to. I begged him not to do that. And so that's why I made the agreement. Okay, I will not raid your provinces, and in return, you do not destroy my capital. And, we'll make that agreement for 6 months. As it turned out, that was generous too. I think like I said, I kind of had to take whatever terms he gave me, and he gave me very lenient terms. That's where, again, I spent a little too much time not provoking Pangaea. I think that might not have been a bad idea anyway to have laid off, just because it gave time for his armies to disperse. And if I'd started just kind of retaking these provinces, he might have just been like, well, okay, it's not secure down here. Bring the armies back, and, let's make our 55 Centaur Death Squad and go, just go one by one to his capital, since I can't trust him to, not lash back out at me. Anyway, that's kind of my long-winded take on it. It was really a difficult situation, and I had a lot of mixed feelings about it. And we'll talk about it more, I think, in the podcast, so I won't belabor the point. But that, to me, I think was the most important part of the game. Dealing with my ceasefire with Pangaea, how much to break it and how much not to, and how much of that was, sound strategic decision making, and how much of it was, metagaming, like, because I know these guys and because I know Dwarf Comic, and just how much of that was good or not. And then, of course, also there was just a lot of discouragement too, trying to get Verney to, desist and go south, and, and that, unfortunately, was also, I should have taken it upon myself to have emailed Daz sooner. In this whole game, by the way, I never contacted anybody even once outside of the chat. And if you go back to my Pretender creation, that's basically what I said I was going to do. I said in episode 0 that I was going to play and, basically try to limit my diplomacy as much as possible to the in-game chat box. And as we've been talking off camera about it more and talking with other Dominions 4 players, that's a pretty serious handicap. And in this case, like, I shouldn't say handicap, I should say that's a pretty serious disadvantage to put yourself into. Let's take a look at the score graphs. So here's some things. The game really did turn once I started getting intelligence from Daz. Like, that really changed my outlook on the game. Is that I knew this much, at least, because you can see this from just looking at the map, that Pangaea just had, the majority of the land. With the forts, and more importantly, the income, this is the information Daz started feeding me that made a big difference. Pangaea did not have the strongest income. Like, we were all... Like, the 3 of us with our income were easily going to be able to control Pangaea if we could have gotten our moves and our armies to work in concert. So this was not the information I expected. Daz had access to it, and he eventually... he didn't show me the graph specifically, but I think he did at one time tell me, like, it must have been around here, that he was like, you actually have more income than Pangaea. And I was like, you're kidding. But that's something I'm going to remember from now on when I play this game, is that, because I was telling you, like with my army, it was like, well, these guys have to do something to dent Pangaea for me to get my army back up above. However, we will come to the army in a sec. Actually, let's do it right now. Army size. Here, however, is my problem. Even in the end game, this was my army strength. Well, Pangaea actually was really weak too. This would have been, yeah, man. I don't know. Maverne and Ermor really. See, this is what I'm talking about. These guys, if they were up here, they needed to do something. And I needed them to do something because my army is down here, and my hope to win is to get my army strength to keep going up, get these guys to go down, as well as keeping Pangaea either here or lower. So that was the only way forward for me, is I was going to have to get my army back up. And the encouragement I feel was warranted was that I had the income to do it. Like, I could have done it. It just needed the game to go a little longer. But, yeah, but where we were at the end of the game, this was not the time for me to attack Pangaea. Right, I did it anyway just because, well, we were facing off the end of the game, right? So it was kind of like, well, roll the dice. But this was not my time to attack. What I needed was not to attack here, and I needed these guys to hit Pangaea. Dominion, this isn't, I think, that important. It didn't play that important a role in our game. You know, except that, you know, my profit was strong, but I'll show it anyway there. But here's another very important thing, and that's research. And this is another thing that has good news and bad news. The good news is I was very worried about my technological place compared to Pangaea, and that was not something I needed to worry about. However, Maverne was definitely setting themselves up as a powerhouse. We did not see very many powerful spells coming out of Maverne to devastate us, but they had the research going, that's for sure. So this would have been a problem. And assuming that my strategy with my military strategy with my army size, assuming that that was going to progress forward, we were going to have a serious problem with Maverne here. Like, my strategy, my long-term strategy of going into the sea and trying to conquer with my military was still, even then, even assuming everything in this part of the game, in this end turn, like, went according to plan, this was going to be a problem in my mind. That Maverne had an edge technologically with access to more and more powerful spells that I may still not have won. So, yeah, definitely needed to get Maverne to turn on Pangaea sooner. And, yeah, again, just didn't do that. Yeah, in the future, I'm just not going to play the same diplomatic style again. Like, we've talked about it, and it's just like, how to say it? It was a liability to myself, and it ended up being a liability to Maverne because we just ended up fighting each other when we needed to fight Pangaea sooner. And if we'd not been communicating with each other, role-playing in-game for as long as we did, then things would have turned out differently. So, gem income. So, poor Maverne, they were not lying when they needed the nature gems. So, man, that's too bad. But that definitely, at least, I could have controlled. That would have mitigated their magic advantage over me, perhaps long-term. Oh, whoops, that's not what I meant to push. And then, yeah, I didn't have anything that special. But, yeah, Ermor and... Yeah, Ermor was doing crazy good. Anyway, well, that's a look at the score graphs, and, you know, having access to this now makes it very interesting. I'm still glad that we played with these off, because it did make, even though the diplomacy was very foobar between me and Maverne, it did make the diplomacy that important, because I had to trust Maverne when Maverne cast Akashic Knowledge to gain this information. And there's an advantage to knowing this, I believe very strongly, which is why I personally prefer playing with score graphs off and as a reward also to people who do go for the information. If you're willing to spend the research and take Akashic knowledge to get this information, I think you deserve that advantage. So that's my feeling when playing Dominions. That's my personal play style, and the other guys indulged me on that end, and I thank them. And finally, I guess I ought to say thank you to everybody who watched and gave comments. It was very helpful, and I'm sad in a way that so much of it came too late after fateful decisions had already been made. And then also I appreciate people, like, I'm sure so many of you probably wanted to just tell me what was going on between the other players because of my sort of obstinate, aloof, diplomatic relationships. And I thank you guys for not doing that. Like, watching Daz's videos, I can definitely see that his mind at a certain point was definitely not where I thought it was. Like, he was definitely not going for the vengeance over here, which I also was not. If it was truly going to come down to, if it was truly going to come down to war with Pangea and Merverni with no end but my obliteration, then I was like, well, I'm gonna go attack Merverni, because that's because Maverni's the one that's been sending me the messages. That's why, basically. So, that was basically it. If after destroying this army, your response is to send more armies, then okay, let's dance. And that was kind of the position I was put in. Is I was like, I'm gonna fight the army that I can beat. All things being equal, and the ultimate outcome being my imminent, incipient, soon-to-be destruction. But that really is just because I didn't have. I mean, what else was I gonna do in the game? I had, except just, I don't know, not attack anybody, I guess. But yeah, I was gonna make something happen, and I also felt like the benefit of that is at least by attacking somebody, the game progresses. And yeah, like I said, it's like, at least, if me and Merverni smash each other to bits, well, the game is moving forward. And yeah, that was kind of the no-win situation I found myself in for that one turn after the fight at Dragonport. That was kind of where I felt like I was at, and I got that yet again hostile message from Daz saying, like, sounding like he was not ever going to be interested in negotiating up here. But anyway, that was my solution to the Kobayashi Maru. I'm just glad that the game I'm glad that the game exited the Kobayashi Maru simulation, and I could start actually doing something again. Because that's the worst. And that was the one thing that, like, is the worst, is when you get into a game and you just can't do anything, and you get put into a position where basically, if you do anything, it's king making. And yeah, so there's some games where that's kind of built into it, and I do think it's built into Dominions a little bit. It's built into any game a little bit. That is all I have to say. I'm sure I'll think of something after I stop recording, but I've spent a lot of time talking, going over this, and it'll be more interesting to kind of talk and hear what the other guys have to say, and we'll be able to talk to each other too. And as always, we can continue the discussion in the comments. Like I said, I'm sure I've forgotten something, or I'm sure I've said something that, if once I go back through and listen to it, I'll be like, oh, nope, that's not actually 100% true. Or, nope, after watching the videos, I realized I made a mistake there. That was a mistaken assumption that I made when I recorded, but didn't turn out to actually be true when I watched the videos of the other guys. So yeah, I definitely enjoyed the game a lot. I compared it to running a race where I think we're all kind of exhausted, but I feel very good about having done it. And I'm looking forward to it again. If any of you are watching and you're wondering about how we're going to set up the next game, we'll talk about that also in the podcast. We're hoping to get more people involved. So yeah, it really ought to be awesome. This one was kind of a test. There are some problems that we want to talk about off camera as well, as far as like our logistics. Anyway, like I said, I feel like it was akin to running a marathon and finishing, feeling really exhausted, but it's something that I enjoyed. I got a lot of good memories out of this, and I look forward to having more games with these three other guys, and hopefully even more people on YouTube in the future. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you next time. Until then, bye-bye.